Welcome to another episode of WCCF Tech Reviews. My name is Jeff, your host, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Kin today. Now, Kin is a great mashup of Viking mythology with tons of great fantasy elements that have been thrown in there for good measure. So it's not just Viking mythology, but it's mostly, and it is fantastic the way they present it. Alright, so now this top-down isometric RPG here, it harkens back to those classic dungeon crawling adventures, that were probably started with the likes of Diablo, and that's what it really gets its inspiration from, and that's why it is so, so similar. And so you might find that it's a little bit similar, but that is good. That is a good thing that you want, trust me here. And with this, you can have up to 6 characters that'll travel along with you and through this world to complete quests. And there are actually a lot of puzzles you can do too, which that's where sometimes having up to 6 characters can be advantageous. And you'll see that because sometimes you have to separate them, and it's really kind of neat. Now, okay, so with your characters, though, it's pretty nifty. You've got 3 areas that you can level up your character in, all right? You've got their mind, their body, and something called control. Not self-control, but control. Now, each of these have a pretty powerful impact on how, the game plays out and how your character reacts to certain situations. So it's actually pretty neat the way they did that. Now, just like those old adventure games that you might remember, loot is going to be the primary reward for completing your quests and slaying your enemies. And even in the beginning, it's interesting because there are a lot of elemental materials that get dropped by your enemies, and so you'll end up having a bunch of like what you think are just crappy stuff that you can sell, but this actually makes up the basis of a very, very well put together crafting system. And so there's a large diversity in the amount of weapons, armor, and other consumables that you can create. And you have to keep in mind that this crafting is very much vital to your success and your survival in this game, because what you can make is always going to be stronger than what you pick up. So be sure to keep all that stuff and keep going back to your crafting menu to check out what you can craft. So it starts off with just 2 guys. You have 2 characters. You're 2 Vikings who completed it's kind of like a warrior trial of sorts, and you guys are the first warriors to complete it in quite some time. And now you're sort of on your way back to your village. This is your first quest that you're doing here. So oddly enough, one of the things I don't really like about this, just off the bat, are the controls, specifically the camera system. And it was kind of a surprise because I didn't really expect it to lock on to my characters as a default. I thought that I'd be able to have like some sort of free roam, but I don't know, for some reason. Anyway, but once you unlock that bad boy pressing the C, which is the default key for that, it gets a little bit more familiar and it's a little bit better. I'm not good at these games, I'm not used to these games, so it's going to be kind of funny. But this is definitely point and click to where you want to go, but you have to be careful when you're engaging enemies though. And sometimes when you're moving around, it's hard to pick up like, copper or things like that and to help you out. But and you've really got to be careful with those weak enemies in the beginning, because they can actually be quite nasty. You don't want to, you want to take your time. You want to use your character's abilities properly and make sure you're switching back and forth. That is very key, using each character and their abilities, because when you have them all selected, you can only see certain amounts, and that's not very much fun. I didn't really like that for some reason. I thought that there could have been a better way. However, having those mapped to the WASD WASD keys was a good touch, because that allows you to very quickly and naturally, for a lot of players, a lot of gamers out there, use those abilities. So it's really quite nice. So make sure you're healing when you need to, and performing those really strong special attacks when you have to, or when you're able to. Of course, there's a little timer that counts down after you use it to where you can use it again. And usually it's not too long, so it's really nice, even for the easy ones, and when you're into it early in the game. Now, one of the cool things here is that there are some enemies that can't be attacked directly. They can't be attacked head on because their armor is just too powerful, or their weapons are too powerful, so they're just going to destroy you. So you can use a character to distract that one, take another one, and then point him in the right direction to attack from a certain direction. It's really kind of cool. So therefore, you can go for their weak spots. It's really neat. It kind of adds another element to this game and to the combat, which I thought was really, really cool. And so, as always, strategy is key, but strategy is key in a lot more ways here, which is really fun, and it's actually pretty easy to use. So it's really, 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 really nice. But so you got to be careful with those stronger bosses and just do that strategy, my friend. And really, with enemies like anything else, like any other game, you can't just run in there all willy-nilly, right? You've got to think before you attack. But once you figure out how to best use your party, even with the 2 guys here, or once you get 6 dudes, it can be a smooth ride of sorts. But this game is so hard. It's very unforgiving. But what they did is they made it so that you can change the level difficulty on the fly. So if you're like me and you kind of suck, you're like, oh, well, I think this is going to be pretty difficult coming up. You can just go into the menu and be like, click, click. We're going to go ahead and go to casual. So that's what I did that. But because there really can be an unforgiving amount of enemies that swarm you, and it really is hard. It's really quite fun, oddly enough. Anyway, but quests are a big part of this too, and they are everywhere. And nearly everyone you meet here is going to have something for you to do, and it's quite fun. Even the small stuff can be fun because the dialogue that they have, a lot of the written dialogue is just fantastic because it's hilarious, the things they've written, and they make it really funny in here. A lot of humor. And of course, all of those things lead to more loot, which leads you to be able to craft more powerful things so you can go off and destroy more powerful things. But, is this thing even fun? Is Kin even a fun game? Yes. I'm going to challenge you if you don't think it is, because I think that it is great. It's rather enjoyable, and there's a tremendous amount of replay value, too, because there's a lot to explore, a lot of witty dialogue, and because some of these lines are really just gorgeously written. It's fantastic. And that combat is different. Because you can mix in strategy in ways that you never thought of. It's sort of on a different level, and it's not just the abilities of magic that you're going to use. Or we're going to use this, and then you've got to wait and got to heal, etc., etc. Like you may have to attack in a different way, and it just adds a cool new element to it. It's nice, and so this is hack and slash, all right. But Kin exemplifies, I think, the finer points of the hack and slash genre. It kind of evolves it just enough to make it even better, and quite nice. It's fun. And even the puzzles that are kind of strewn throughout here aren't that frustrating, or at least as frustrating as I thought they would be. It's the combat that's more that's more difficult, but the puzzles, they're interesting, they're fun, and they're definitely doable if you just put your mind to it. And actually, it helps you. Lo and behold, oddly enough, playing games like this where you have to solve things, use your brain and think about what you're doing, can actually help. And it's fun. I struggle through them. I do that. But I could fail them calmly for some reason. It's weird. But maybe the ethereal music helped me with that. We'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, the Viking lore here is great. It's just fantastic. And it's everywhere, obviously. And it's about the story. That is the story. But I love it. The way they do it is just amazing. Because it's so subtly mixed in with fantasy. Because they try to make it, not just necessarily realistic Viking lore. But it is. Because it's all from real Viking history and whatnot, but they make it fantastical, so to speak. And it's great because the music even helps to strengthen that atmosphere, and it's something that you would think would be like, Viking type music, and I love it. I'm a big fan of good music in games, and this has good music in here. As you go on, you learn more about the story, and the real fun begins, because there's a lot of even harder enemies to do, and it's hilariously fun and brutal. And while it's not, a first-person shooter, it is violent in its own way, and it's kind of fun. It really is entertaining when you're just destroying lots of things, and the battlefield is littered with with corpses. It's interesting. But anyway, so yes, this game is incredibly fun, very much so. And if you love dungeon crawlers, but you want something a little bit more varied, a little bit more massive actually in scope with its story, even if the story is fantastic, then Kin might just tick the right boxes for you there. It might be good for you. Obviously not going to be for everybody, but if you like dungeon crawlers, if you like isometric RPGs, and if you like this type of action, then you will love it, because it has all of those things that you love. It makes it a little bit better, evolves it, mixes it up, puts in a healthy amount of Viking lore, and it really is fun. So I dare you to try it if those are your things that you enjoy about games. I dare you to go out there and try it. You will probably love it. All right, I'm Jeff Williams for WCCF Tech Reviews. Thank you once again. This is Kin.